If you were thirsty right now, what would you do? Well, given that you're watching a YouTube video, I'm guessing that you're in a developed part of the world, so you'd just get up and go to your kitchen and you'd get a nice, clean, safe glass of water. Well, out on the trail, things aren't that simple, so we're going to talk about water treatment options next. Stay tuned. Water's a beautiful thing and life couldn't exist without it. But it's one of those things we don't really think about unless we have too little of it or too much of it. Well, you may think that out in the backcountry, getting water is going to be something as simple as filling our canteens from a beautiful mountain stream, but sometimes you end up with just a pothole in a national forest. So let's talk about how we deal with that. So here's a brief history. I've talked about this in other videos, but I'm going to go over it quickly. Back in the 1960s, we'd take our water straight out of a stream, put it in a canteen, start drinking it. By the time the 1970s rolled around, we were still doing that, but we at least had the courtesy to feel uneasy about it. And now you just treat it. You don't even think about it, always treat your water. Various different methods. We can boil it, we can use ultraviolet light, we can use filters or purifiers. Those are two different things. Or we could use chemical treatment. So here's that chart I showed in an earlier video from the CDC where it shows the various different treatment options and the contaminants that they're trying to deal with. So the perfect ones, the ones that treat everything, would be boiling, purifying using a water purifier, or using ultraviolet light treatments. Now, most hikers actually just use a filter. And if you look at the filter column, you see that big red X. It's not good for viruses. Chlorine dioxide is another option that hikers commonly use. Its problem is it doesn't deal with particular parasites, but if you combine the two, you're back to covering everything as long as your filter meets the criteria that's stated on the chart. So we're going to talk about each of these options in turn. We're going to start with boiling. It just requires your normal cooking equipment. It's conceptually very simple. I mean, we all know what boiling water is. It's just heating the water up. It uses fuel. And once you bring the water to a boil, you do have to keep it boiling for another minute, which is actually a little bit more than just boiling water, say, for cooking. It uses time, the time to boil the water, and if you're using it for drinking, the time for it to cool back down naturally. That takes a while. Now, you could combine it with cooking, so if you had untreated water, you could boil it, do that extra minute, and then use it for reconstituting meals, that sort of thing. Another option, ultraviolet light treatments. It's good for sterilizing water. That's killing the pathogens out there. The one that I have is a Katadyn Steri-Pin Adventurer model. It only works in clear water. If it's in dirty, murky water with a lot of sediment, the UV light is just not going to get throughout your container. It requires batteries. This particular model has these special 123 type batteries. They're like a C-cell, except much smaller, but it's got the proportion of a C-cell battery. I worry that the thing is breakable. That is a glass tube in it that's emitting the ultraviolet light. It doesn't improve taste or remove sediments. It just makes the water safe as long as it's clear. But there's no visible confirmation of results, and that actually kind of scares me. With all the other ways of purifying water, boiling, adding chemicals, putting it through a filter, you'll see something happening. The ultraviolet light, a little light comes on and says, yep, you're done. Trust me, it's safe. That worries me a little bit. If the technology breaks down, I just don't know what's going to happen. But I've tried all these different methods. Filters are the most common option, like I've said. I have tried various different filters. There's the Katadyn hand pump, which I had. It takes time and effort. You have to pump the water through, but it's not too bad. I mean, you're out hiking, you can do that easily. The cartridges are rated for about 750 liters. I'll get into the ratings of these cartridges in a little while. Another option, the one I've used most recently, is a platypus gravity feed system, and I'll show it here in use. You can leave it to work on its own. You could load the water in, the dirty water into the dirty bag, and just let it flow through while you go do other things. It's rated for about 1,500 liters per cartridge. It is convenient for groups especially, and at camp. Little less convenient when you're out on the trail, actually out hiking, but I've used it for that. You do have to protect the filter from drops or freezing. If the filter freezes, it's not a matter of thawing it out, it's a matter of just throwing it out. You've ruined the filter just because of the technology in there. Another type of filter that I see a lot of hikers using is called the Sawyer Squeeze. I'm going to go out and get one and test it this year because it's a lot lighter than all the others. It's got a high capacity, it's lightweight, and it's inexpensive. It's a bare bones. It's basically like a naked filter. I mean, you have to combine it with your water bottles or whatever you're doing with it. But it seems like a viable option. I'm going to talk about it a little bit more when we get to cost. Chemical treatments. Usually some form of chlorine or iodine. There are liquid mixes, which is usually chlorine dioxide, or you can get tablets, which is either iodine or chlorine dioxide, and sometimes the iodine comes with a flavor or killer or whatever, just to kill the taste of the iodine. I carry with me Aquamira, which is a chlorine dioxide mix, as a backup or supplement. It's one of these things where you get 2 little bottles, you mix them together, you put it in your water supply. 2 ounces will treat about 30 gallons, and I'm going to get to these capacities in a little while. That's actually not a lot. So I use it as a backup when norovirus is at high risk, and you have to keep your ear to the ground, listen to other hikers, and just find out if there's any cases of norovirus going in the area. Unfortunately, if you tried to treat all your water with this, you'd go broke and you'd be carrying too many fluid ounces. But I consider it a suitable backup. So here's where the rubber hits the road. We really are concerned with cost. I don't have weight on this, but I'll talk about weight as we go along. So here I'm going to talk about various options. These are just samples. There are other options, but these are just examples of the various different kinds. Their base cost, which I calculate as the manufacturer's suggested retail price, minus the cost of whatever consumable they're giving you when you buy it. For example, a filter cartridge. I'm looking at its capacity, looking at the recurring cost, which would be a batteries or a filter or something like that. And then what is the cost per 100 gallons? Just gives us a number that we can relate to. So the Katadyn pump, base cost is $44, in other words, $80, but you get a $36 cartridge with it. Capacity, they claim about 200 gallons of water. So for me, that's good for 100 days. That's longer than any hike I'm ever likely to go on. And the cost per 100 gallons is about $18, just baseline. The Katadyn Pocket is actually a purifier. It's a lot heavy. Well, it's not a lot heavier. The Katadyn pump is about a pound. The Katadyn Pocket purifier is about 1.5 pounds. Its base cost is $195. Now, when you buy it, it's closer to $400 because you get the $200 initial cartridge in it. It claims a capacity of 12,000 gallons. I mean, I would never run out in my lifetime with 12,000 gallons because that's 6,000 nights on the trail. This is not going to happen. And that comes out to be a much lower $1.66 a gallon. Now, I'm very wary of these, especially these very high capacities that are advertised. Take them with a grain of salt. But in any case, if I were to carry this unit with me, I don't think I'd have any problem with water as long as I took care of it, maintained the product properly. Now, the Platypus gravity feed system that I use, base cost $55, supposed capacity 360 gallons. The cartridges themselves are $65. So that comes out the same as the pump as far as that cost goes. Again, it's an easier thing at the camp. It's actually, the pump is a little easier when you're out on the trail, but the pump is heavier. This gravity feed thing that I use, it comes out under a pound because I don't use the clean bag, it's called. I just put stuff into the dirty bag and then I filter directly into my water bladder. The one that I talked about that I see out on the trail is the Sawyer Squeeze, and this is why I have to try this. Now, they had this ridiculous, they say it's good for 100,000 liters. That comes out to be about 24,000 gallons. You're going to break the thing before you use 24,000 gallons, and I don't believe that number. Sites I've visited say, well, that's in the laboratory with water that's already clean. So you're not going to get 24,000 gallons out of it. But even if you had to buy 2 or 3 of these units in your lifetime, it'd be well worth it. That comes out to be about 16 cents per 100 gallons. That is outrageously inexpensive. So that's why I'm going to try this out, because I think it may meet my needs. Added bonus, it only weighs 2 to 3 ounces depending on which model you get. The Aquamira chlorine dioxide, that only covers 30 gallons, and since its recurring cost is $15, well, the cost per 100 gallons is actually $50, so that's very expensive by comparison, which is why you just have it for emergencies. And then finally, the SteriPen Ultraviolet, its base cost is $100, And the only recurring cost there is the batteries, but the batteries are only good for 12 gallons. Well, that's 6 days on the trail. So I'd have to be changing batteries once a week with those. So that's another reason why I'm really getting away from this SteriPen. As nice as it is to know that, you know, you zap them little bugs with ultraviolet light, it just doesn't seem to be a viable option for me out on the trail. So those are our water purification options. Thanks for listening. I'm going to be, like I said, bringing the Sawyer Squeeze out with me on the trail, and I'll report back on that when I get a chance. So remember to like and comment, and I suggest you watch this video next. Thanks.